All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. So today we've got a quick episode talking about a very particular situation that I 100% want you to ignore. And this is a situation, this is something that a lot of people come across. And we're thrown into these situations or we see this type of thing, whether it's online, we get friends, family, people who are kind of well meaning, but it's a really rubbish situation. And I want to explain in a little bit of detail. So if you do run into it at some stage, or if you have run into this in the past, you can know to ignore it. So essentially what I'm talking about today is the classic comment that people love to talk about when it comes to training for hiking. And what will happen is basically someone will put up something online, or maybe someone will sort of state to a friend or a family member or whatever it may be. And they'll say, look, I'm preparing for this hike. I'm going to start doing some training. Like, what should I be doing? And you may put this up in an online Facebook group. You may sort of mention this to a friend who's fit or whatever it may be. And always, I see people say the same things, which just drives me mental. And people respond very glibly to this request for help. And they'll sort of say something, oh, you don't need to train, for this hike. Just go out and do it. You'll be fine. Or, you know what, if you just stay in shape, if you just keep fit, you don't have to train for any particular hike. Just stay in shape and you'll be absolutely fine. And I absolutely loathe this advice. I loathe this response. It drives me up the wall when I hear it, when I see it. Number one, because it's obviously directly against what I do for my full-time job. But number two, because it's just such terrible advice. And people love to say it, but it's absolutely terrible advice. And most people can tend to sort of shrug this off and be like, oh, you know what, I'm just going to ignore this particular person. But sometimes when it's coming from a trusted source, maybe coming from a friend or a family member, or maybe we're relatively new to hiking and an experienced hiker tells us this, or whatever it may be, it can really throw us off. And it drives me up the wall. And I think where this sort of comes from and where this sort of advice is like, you don't need to train for hiking, whatever it may be. Like, I went out and did this hike and I didn't do any training. I think it really comes from like the tendency of people just love to brag about their successes. Like, people always like to brag about their successes, and that's fair enough. That's just a trait of human nature. But what people really like to do on top of that is brag about their successes when they've been able to succeed and they think they've done way less effort than other people. So when we're looking at these types of hikes and they may say, hey, I went and did Everest Base Camp, I didn't do a day of training, but I got through it okay. That in their mind is not only did they succeed, but because they didn't train, they're somehow more accomplished or something like that. And again, it's fair enough. If you get through an adventure like this, that's pretty great accomplishment. And if you get through and you haven't done any training, absolutely fair enough. But I hate it when people tell this to other people. Because if someone's asking about training, if they're asking how to get fit, or they're saying they're doing specific training for a specific hike, it's for a reason. It's because maybe they're a little bit worried about a hike. It's maybe they've had a bad experience in the past. Maybe they just don't want to be in this position where they're like out on the trail and like, oh my gosh, I'm knackered. My legs are sore. I'm having a terrible time. Like, they are training for a reason. And so when I see this advice, it does my head. So I just want to sort of basically say, for anyone who is going through a training journey, if you're thinking about prepping for a big adventure, or maybe you're trying to improve your fitness on the trail, and you're specifically trying to do training to get in a better position, please ignore these people. They may be coming from a good place in their own minds, but they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know your particular situation. They don't know what you're doing and why you're doing it. If you're training for a particular reason, go ahead and do it. Because worst case scenario, you're going to be more fit than you need to be. So you can go out and enjoy your hikes in a better position. Worst case scenario, if you listen to this advice and you roll into an adventure, worst case scenario, you're getting a helicopter out, which happens every day in every single major hiking destination. And you don't want to be one of those people. So, I don't know, this is my little rant today. And I don't know if this is going to apply to you, but I know there is going to be some people listening to this podcast who this sounds really familiar. And I have talked to a lot of people in the past who've been kind of put off a little bit by this advice. They've just sort of been like, had their confidence shaken, think, do I need to be spending this time and this and that? And this podcast today is for those people. And on top of that, maybe, I don't think you're probably listening right now about a podcast about training for hiking, but maybe there are some people listening who have given this advice in the past. Maybe you find hiking quite a bit easier than other people. Maybe you don't typically need to do a huge amount of training, and that's absolutely fine if that's you. But please don't tell people to ignore their training. Please don't tell people, they don't need to, just do anything to get ready for a hike. Please don't give people bad advice, because you never hear the bad stories. You never hear the horror stories. You never hear the things that go wrong. And me, this being my job, I hear them every single day. When people went into these trips underprepared, when I went out of hikes, had a terrible time, whether it's socially, whether it's physically, whether it's mentally, and it's absolutely sucked so much joy from this amazing thing that hiking is. I hear these stories every day, and I just don't want to hear any more, basically. So for anyone listening today, thank you for listening. Thank you for hearing my rant. Thank you for sort of taking it in. And I hope this can at least, keep a few people on the right track. So thank you for listening. I hope you have a lovely day, and we'll talk to you very soon. Bye.